I'm delighted to welcome Andy Ferguson from University of Birmingham, university close to my own heart. We'll be looking at trends, patterns, and timelines using AI to support decision making and using bespoke tooling that's been integrated with ServiceNow. So a session that's interesting from lots of different angles, and looking forward to hearing this one. Over to you, Andy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
All good, thank you.
Fantastic. All right. What I want to talk about today is why we're using AI in our service management team, a bit of rationale for the kind of things that we're doing. I'd like to show you some things that we've built with AI or that use AI or both. That is going to be a live demo. Let's see how that goes. It's going to be quite exciting. So I've got 6 things up there that I'm going to show you. Hopefully we can get through all of those in the time that we've got. And then at the end, I'll talk a little bit about how we did this, how much it cost, and not just financial costs, but costs to the planet. Because when we're thinking about AI, we also need to think about sustainability. And if I don't get through that bit, I've got some information that I'll share afterwards that goes into all of that in a lot more detail. So why are we doing this? We've got a lot of data at the university. We've got so much data within our service management tool, and theoretically, we can use that data to make great decisions. However, what we often find is that the decisions that are made are actually opinions, and those opinions don't take into account the large amount of data that we've got, because it's quite difficult to process it or consume it, find the right thing in order to make a good decision. So what we are trying to get to with this piece of work is the concept of data-driven decisions, where when we have to decide something, we're making that decision based on the data that we've got. And AI is really good at helping us with this, as long as we ask it the right questions. And I think that's the really important thing. And I'll go through that in a bit more detail shortly. So this is where the slides end for now. And I want to show you a few things. Before I do, what I'll say is everything that I'm showing you today started off as an experiment. Some of them still are. And the vast majority of things here were built by us in the service management team on our own. And they primarily make our lives easier, although we are starting to roll out some of this functionality to other people. So what I want to talk about first is incidents. We have thousands of incidents in our service desk system, as I'm sure everyone does. And one of the things I wanted to be able to do with these is to extract useful information about trends. As we move away from reactive incident management to proactive problem management, we need to understand what are the things that are hurting us over and over again. And when we've got so much data, it can be really difficult to get those kind of answers. So this is something we've built in ServiceNow, which allows us to take some records. They could be incidents, changes, problems, whatever. Today, I've picked incidents that I logged. This is probably not the best data set to get meaningful results from, but I just thought it was something that we could look at today. And we have a standard prompt for trend analysis, but we can also edit these prompts so we can ask specific questions of the data directly within ServiceNow. And then this is making an API call off to a system called Nebula One, which I'll talk a bit more about later. We've also built in a calculation for token cost and actual money cost of running this prompt, which I've already generated. And then what we can do is we can send the AI off to look at this small data set that we've given it and see what it comes up with. Now, this one might take a little bit of time to run. So I think I'm going to move on to another one while we wait for that to go. So, changes. One of the questions that my team answers the most is, does my change need to come to CAB? Now, we've got knowledge base articles on this. We've got lots of guidance. It's a question that we think we already answer, but clearly we're not. So one of the things that we've built into change in ServiceNow is some standard questions. And one of those questions is, does this change need to go to CAB? So what we've given this AI is access to all of our knowledge information, and it can also read every single field in the change record. So we're going to ask AI, does this change need to come to CAB? Additional jeopardy for me. I don't think this one does. At least I hope it doesn't, because it's something that we're doing today and it hasn't been to CAB. So again, it's doing a relatively quick search here. This doesn't have access to a lot of information, therefore it can process that information a lot more quickly. And it's telling us, no, your change does not need to come to CAB. It's giving us a rationale based on the criteria that we set for CAB changes. And so this is really useful for us. But what we want to do next with this is we want to roll it out to everyone that makes changes, so that as part of the change process, they can run this against their change and find out what kind of change it should be, whether it's management approval, whether it should maybe be a pre-approved change, or whether it needs to go to CAB. And we've got a load of other questions that we can run on change. We've got a few of these set up, risk assessments, summaries of changes that have come to CAB, all that kind of stuff. And we can do post-implementation reviews on changes that have maybe not gone as well as they should. And we've got prompts set up for all that kind of thing. So that's a couple of things that we're doing directly in ServiceNow on live data. But that's not always possible. So I'm going to show you some of the other things that we've been doing with other types of data that we use. So, okay, so my team work in 2-week sprints. We're a service management operations team, but we also do quite a bit of service improvement work, development work, that kind of thing. And we use the agile tasks in ServiceNow to manage all of our work. The reporting that sits on top of those hasn't quite caught up with the functionality that's in there. So we created this with AI to actually help us with our sprint reviews and our retrospectives. So what I'm going to do is load in some data as a CSV, because this isn't plugged directly into ServiceNow at the moment. So having to put the data in manually. But what we can then do is to look at all of that data to show us what kind of things we've done, get us some insight on the work that we're doing at the moment. And particularly for us when we're doing sprint review, it gives us that opportunity to pull up a list of things that we've done and that we're doing. It's saying that I'm presenting at this event right now, which is exactly what I am doing, which is good. So this is a static page, but it's using data outside of ServiceNow. We then tried to get this to do a lot of other clever things, and we're not quite there yet. So we ended up using another one of our tools, Nebula One, because what we found when we were doing these sprint reviews is a lot of the information that we actually need is sitting in Teams chats, and it's sitting in the transcripts of conversations, things that we've not even written down, but that we need to aggregate with all of this other information. So I'm going to show you how we did that now. So this is another one of our AI tools that we're piloting, Nebula One, fairly similar to Copilot and sort of basic chat interface. And what I want to walk you through here is how we created one of our sprint reports in SharePoint using AI. So we've got a prompt that basically says, have a CSV, tell us a load of stuff about what's in that CSV. So we're starting off with that. And it will give us a file, which is great. But we're going to ask it some more things here. So what I've done then is fed it one transcript from a Teams call. And this is the text file transcript that you get when you record or transcribe a meeting in Teams. And based on what I said it was looking for, it said, there's a few more things that you might want to put in your report. There's also some things you definitely don't want to put in your report, like personal chat, weather complaints, and a long debate that we had about a team member who was attending an awards ceremony and what he was going to wear. No one needs that. So it kind of understands what's in scope and what's out of scope, which is quite nice. So it then gave us another iteration of that report. So then we're like, okay, you can do text transcripts, have lots of other text transcripts. So in our retrospectives and our daily stand-ups, we talk about things that we're grateful for and things that we've learned. We don't write these things down, we just talk about them. So giving the AI some transcripts of those meetings, and it's identified some things we're grateful for and some things we've learned. And it's also like, you've talked about some stuff here that you didn't talk about in anything else that you've done. I've added that in as well. We won't go to that yet. So this is kind of ready for SharePoint now, but we need some kind of graphic, some kind of visual. So we're asking the AI, make us a banner image for our SharePoint page that uses the things that we've done as inspiration. This can be good, it can be terrible. This one's all right. So it's created us an image, and it's given us some insight of its thinking and why it chose the particular graphics that it did to represent the work that we were doing in this sprint. Then we did our sprint review, our retro, and we asked it, have we identified any new learning in this meeting? Yes, we had, because we talked about learning a lot in this particular sprint. A lot of our learning was around AI. So we learned a lot about going through this process that I'm actually showing you now. This is what we were doing during the sprint, and it's got a load of stuff that I talked about that I learned while I was doing this piece of work. And then it's thrown all that together. We've got a lovely bit of text that we can paste into SharePoint. Also comes as Markdown if we need it as Markdown. And so we've got everything we need to just build a SharePoint page from this. Next step is get the automation of SharePoint sorted. We haven't done that yet. But I'm going to show you something else now. This wasn't created with AI. This is something we do as part of our post-incident review process. And every time we run a PIR, we produce one of these timelines that just goes through everything that happened when it happened. This is related to some extreme weather in Dubai. They had a flood. We needed to turn our data center off. That's what this P1 was. And my team have to go through Teams chats, the incident in ServiceNow, any transcripts of conversations that were had about this incident, and try and pull together this timeline. And it was actually taking them quite a long time. So we started to think, okay, can we pull together all of those things that we've learned so far about AI and the kind of data that AI can process to automate this? It's taken us a little bit of time, but we are now in a position where we can go from something like that to something like this. So this was generated from 3 prompts, one in a Teams chat, one running on some ServiceNow data, and one bundling the two together and describing how to create this infographic. Takes about 10 to 15 minutes from start to finish to generate this. And we can run our post-incident review just off this image. Has all the information that we normally put in our slide decks for PIRs, and it summarizes the timeline. and we can split it into detection, the actual P1, and recovery activities, records the people that were involved in restoring service, how long the incident lasted, all sorts of useful information that we can pull onto here. And this is taking all those data sources that I talked about before, using a lot of the techniques that I've already walked you through to get us to this point. And this is something we're working on right now. This is one of the first ones that we've done. Not a lot of people have seen this, and maybe people from our university on the call that have not seen this yet. It's brand new, but I thought it'd be a good example of something that we're doing with AI right now that you might find interesting. Okay, I think we've got time for another couple. Let's see what we can do next. Next thing I want to talk about is prompting. Obviously, to get results like the things that I've shown you, it's really important to get your prompts right. And we've iterated a lot on this. We've created a prompt library in SharePoint as a SharePoint list, so that if we have a prompt that works and that produces us predictable-ish results, then we record it in the prompt library so that other people can use it and do the same kind of thing, or also base something new on one of our prompts. SharePoint lists are great, and this gives us a data source that we could theoretically get other things to consume, which I think is quite powerful. We haven't done that yet. I don't find this super useful to work with, so I've used AI to create me a HTML version of this, just generate it every few days to update the prompt library. So I've got this static HTML page running literally on my computer. It just gives us the prompt information, instructions on how to use the prompt, because I think that's important as well, what tools the prompt runs in, and what kind of intended use case there is. So we've got this for every single one of the prompts behind the things that I've shown you so far, and a load of other things. And we can just copy that, paste it into whatever tool, and just gives us an easier way of working with those prompts. I definitely would advise people working in AI, set up some sort of prompt library. If you don't have it already, you will end up losing really good prompts if you don't. I think I can show one more thing. So the last thing I want to show you before I talk through a couple of things is around knowledge. So we've got a lot of knowledge in our knowledge base, and a lot of different types of people that need to consume it. And very often we present the same knowledge to multiple different personas and expect them to get meaning from it. Our user feedback suggests that this is not always successful. And so this is a proof of concept that I've thrown together for another talk that I thought might be quite interesting here. I've taken all of our knowledge base articles for our service design practice, and then looked at who are the different types of people that interact with service design on a day-to-day basis. So we might have a service design beginner. So AI, no, we're going to have our first live demo error. It looks like the back end of this has died. Bear with me a minute. I'm just going to load another iteration of this. There we go. Right, back on track. Okay, so for this, we said this is a beginner to service design. They don't know anything about design. So we're just going through the really basic stuff about why we design services, because this is what this persona needs. But we've also created a number of different personas. So for our design authority board, they are the approvers of service designs. They need completely different stuff. So they need to know about design authority board, what they're going to look at, what kind of questions they should be asking, what their responsibilities are, all those kind of things. Completely different knowledge, but it uses the same set of knowledge base articles as its source. So where we're at with this proof of concept is these articles have been rewritten by AI based on the persona. So I'm just telling it, look at the design authority board member persona, take all this knowledge and rewrite it so it fits what this particular type of person needs. What we want to do next is to be more dynamic with that. And this is something that could very definitely sit in ServiceNow. But at the moment, it at least gives us that proof of concept to say we can rewrite things based on very different audiences, but maintain it as one set of knowledge. So that's the end of the live demo. You'll be glad to hear, with only one failure, which is actually pretty good. I'm just going to go through a couple more slides before we finish. Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about how we built some of this stuff. I've talked through some of it as we've gone along, and apologies if you can hear my dog in the background. So a lot of this was started off as experiments. It started off as things running on individual computers. We used a lot of local LLMs. We didn't have Nebula One. We didn't have much access to Copilot when we started this. So we ended up building a lot of this stuff ourselves. We're moving towards getting this stuff in the cloud, productionizing it, rolling it out to other people. But a lot of it started off not quite like the diagram on my screen, although I do have things like that in this room. But it was very much something we threw around ourselves. Put a bit of stuff on our technology stack, the cloud tools that we are using, the various different tools that we use to create the web front ends. And a lot of this stuff may be available to your university. We've built a lot of stuff using GitHub Code Pro in Visual Studio Code. That should definitely be available to anyone who's from a university here. And a little bit about models that we have found useful for creating this sort of stuff. We try and use the smallest models we can for cost reasons. So we do a lot of experiments on can we get something that's good enough rather than the best thing that is possible. So cost. I think we all know that the monetary cost of doing AI is going up. It seems to be going up every week. It's not just the cost of cloud services, the cost per token to run this stuff, but if you're setting up things locally, the cost of memory and hard drives has gone through the roof because of AI. Doing this stuff is not cheap, so we have to try and be as pragmatic as we can when we're setting up these solutions. It doesn't cost that much time to make the kind of things that I've shown you. A lot of these things were originally 1 hour lunchtime projects, throw together a proof of concept. Can we get something to work? And absolutely, yes, we can. Productionizing them takes longer, but relatively quick to get something that you can start with and that you can iterate. From a sustainability point of view, climate change impact of AI, we cannot ignore it and we cannot forget it. It's there. But if we did a lot of these things manually, it might actually take a lot longer and cost us a lot more, because while computers need electricity and they need powering, so do we, and we kind of need to take those things into account. And very much using AI for things that we were going to do anyway, using AI to be more effective, to be more efficient, to get better answers from our data, not just because we want to create a cool picture that's funny. We always try and bear that in mind, although, as you've seen, we do a bit of image generation ourselves. Done a lot of research into this from an academic point of view. I'm an environmental scientist by background. I'm really interested in this side of things. I'll share some links to papers in the slides that I share after this. There's quite a lot of research being done in this. A lot of using AI to rewrite things, create small images, that kind of thing. It can actually be better for the planet because it's so quick. And it's important to take the whole ecosystem into account when you're looking at this sort of thing. So this is just a screenshot from a paper that I'll share afterwards that kind of says, whilst yes, it's bad for the planet, it's not as bad as it would be if we tried to do these things manually. If I tried to create that incident timeline image manually, I'd fail for starters, but I'd consume quite a lot of food, electricity, computers that I threw at the wall because I was so frustrated with it. There are sometimes it is better to get AI to do these things. A few hints and tips if you are dabbling in this kind of experimentation. Use small models if you can get away with it, and optimize models if you want to rewrite data like we did with the knowledge-based stuff. Use an LLM that's optimized for rewriting text rather than one that's optimized for generating images. Use cloud services where you can, but obviously you need to know where that data is going, where it's going to be used, how it's going to be used, and where it's going to be processed. Some things we've done locally for that reason. And yeah, consider local models for simple stuff. A lot of what I've shown you was written using local LLMs. And there's some links there of tools that you could try. Said this already, I'll say it again. Use AI for things you would have done anyway. And use AI responsibly. And think about total carbon cost of ownership. I'll share some more information about that as a concept after this talk. And that's me done. I don't know if we want to do questions now. I'll be around afterwards to answer questions as part of the last bit, Mark.
Well, thank you for that, Andy. That was brilliant. And your control of the live demo was admirable indeed. So much to think about there. There were a couple of questions in the chat. You can choose to take them now or at the end. One was about AI focusing on the wrong themes and subjects, and the other one was, would love to know more about the productionizing process. Does it include any degree of approval process or consideration of how it fits into your overall service architecture?
Oh yeah, I'll field both of those now. This shouldn't be too long. So hallucinations. Oh, we had so many problems with hallucinations at the start. I think, and I'm amazed I haven't said this phrase yet. Keeping humans in the loop is important here, because this is stuff that we did. It's really, really easy for us to look at it and go, "No, we didn't do that. Let's take that out." So we review it. We review everything before it actually gets out there to people. It's getting better at it, is what I will say. And we have used a lot of different models, and we have been iterating that process. We're on sprint 63 at the moment, and I think we started generating sprint reports in sprint 20. So we've had a lot of iterations of this, which has got us to what I've shown you today. And for productionization, anything that we're releasing as a production service will go through our normal service design and release process. So I've shown you Nebula 1 today. Nebula 1 is in pilot at the moment. That's going through the process at the moment. That we're hoping to release that to the wider university soon. So yeah, we would have exactly the same amount of scrutiny. I mean, some of the stuff I've shown you today is little experiments that are just for our team. But if we were rolling this out to other people, absolutely. Like anything else, it needs appropriate governance, and I think that's really important.
Excellent. Thank you very much.